Alright, so working on the LS swapped S197 Mustang again here. And we have the CD009. This is out of a 350Z sitting right here. And we just got in the Collins adapter kit to mate the CD009 to the LS. This adapter kit comes with the this nice, very nice machine plate here. So this is to adapt to the T56 bell housing. So it comes with the adapter plate, T56 bell housing, a brand new T56 slave cylinder. This is your clutch and pressure plate, rated for 500 foot-pounds of torque. It comes with a brand new flywheel for the engine. So all of that is included in the kit, and the kit's about $2,000. Now that might sound expensive, but between the kit and the transmission, that is about $3,000. And I overpaid a little bit for this transmission just because it's so nice and has such low mileage on it, but I paid about $1,000 for this transmission. So combined, to get the engine hooked to the transmission with everything you need, clutch, pressure plate, flywheel, bell housing, you know, slave cylinder, everything you need, is about $3,000, and you're hooked up to your engine, you're ready to go. If you were to buy T56 for $3,000, you'd still have to buy a clutch, you still have to buy stuff on top of that. So it's not really $3,000 for a T56 if you were to find one for $3,000. Alright, so I'm getting the transmission ready to put the T56 bell housing on it. But the Collins adapter kit comes with this machined plate here. And the way this works is you actually have to cut off the aluminum bell housing that's on here, because it is one piece. And then that aluminum machined plate bolts into all these front cover bolts. So it'll bolt all the way through here. That big plate will sit on the front of here, and then your T56 bell housing will bolt to the front of that. So this bell housing gets cut off right on, not this casting line, but the second casting line right in front of it. So you just go all the way around, knock that off, and then you can install that aluminum plate there. So I'm going to work on getting that cut off, and then I'll get the plate installed. Alright, so bell housing is cut. We did have one casualty. We killed the Harbor Freight grinder over there. That's okay. We got another one. Now, there it goes. So that's off. So move this back up here. Be able to see. Hold on. Okay. So that's how it gets cut off right there. You just follow that casting mark all the way around. I'm going to clean this surface up with the flap disc just a little bit. Blow this all off before I pull the cover off so all that doesn't get inside the transmission, but then I'll pull the cover off, and the new cover adapter plate should bolt right on. So let me get this cleaned up, and then we'll get that bolted up. Alright, so another thing you have to do once you have the bell housing off is you have to cut off this stud right here. So basically you just take a grinder, cut it off flush with the top of that nut. I'm trying to keep all the metal shavings from going down the bearings and the transmission and everything, so that's what this is. So I'm going to cut that off real quick, and then this plate should be ready to slide on. I just got to clean this surface, put some sealant on there, and slide it on. Alright, so I went ahead and put a whole bunch of RTV on the back of this face. So that's going to sit against this face on the transmission. We clean both those faces up, cut that stud off right there. So I'm going to get this dropped on, start putting bolts in. Alright, that's all the bolts. So the plates mount, I'm going to go around, torque all these bolts, then the slave cylinder go on, and then the bell housing go on. Alright, so the bell housing's on. It's got those two locating pins, one there, they're pretty tight. I had to tap this thing onto them with a hammer, but it went on. So now it's got all the bolts that go through to the bell housing from the back, which are all those guys. So I gotta put this thing back on the ground and put all those bolts in from the back side. Slave cylinder's on. Everything's ready to go. Everything's brand new. I don't have a clutch line yet, but I'm not putting the clutch on. We're just going to get it mocked up in the car. This is going to have to come back out. I'll put the clutch line in. Flywheel, everything will go on then. This is just for, you know, getting the crossmember made, getting everything made and mocked up. Alright, so bell housing's on. I had to do some more trimming because I don't know how to follow directions. You're supposed to put the bell housing on the adapter first. I didn't, so I had to notch that to get one bolt in there. And just notch a little bit on these two over here and this one right there. But you can get all the bolts in if you do that. I didn't want to take the whole cover off, mess up the seal and all the RTV in there that was already drying. So all these are tight. Slave cylinder bolts are tight. It's just about ready to go in the car. I got to put the pilot bushing and the crank on the engine, but we're going to do that up on the lift. You also want to make sure when you put this on that you can clearly see a gap all the way around here, because you want to make sure it's not touching the surface. You want to make sure it's sealing to the machine surface down inside there on the transmission, that surface that it's sealed on. So make sure that there's a visible gap all the way around. If there's not, you got to take it back off and trim more, because you do not want it to be sitting on that surface. It will make the transmission sit crooked, do all kinds of weird things. It'll leak oil because the seal won't be flush in there. So make sure that's good. So next step here, I'm going to bring this around to the lift, get up under it with this, try to get it mounted to the engine. Just stick a couple bolts in it for now, just for mock-up purposes, and then start working on transmission crossmember mount. Okay, so transmission's on the jack. Here's a better view of the oil pan, everything on the bottom of the engine, how it fits around the crossmember here. Clears the steering rack. Everything up here. There's the front motor mount. Only the two front bolt lines up, so we got to modify it for the back ones there. And here is the other motor mount. So those two front ones line up, and this one up here lines up with the bracket. And the bracket's got two more bolts in, so this side I think's okay. But that's how it sits. So we'll get this transmission up. Alright, so we're into the car. Got the transmission up on the jack, you can see. And now I'm working on transmission mount. So I got this transmission mount right here. And what I'm going to do, this is the factory bolt locations here and here. We're going to take this aluminum, 1/4-inch aluminum plate. We're going to cut it. We're going to bolt it across. This doesn't sit flat. As you can see, it's kind of angled that way. So we're going to take the flat bar, bolt it in across here. We're going to bend it so it angles up, and then it'll bend down and back. And then we're going to gusset the bottom of it. I got some pieces of aluminum here. We'll put on the bottom as gussets to make it nice and strong. And we'll get working on that.